Good morning, this is John Piper with the pre-trading video report, and it's Saturday the 24th of January. Interesting week last week. I have been asked to explain how I count 5 waves, so I'm going to spend a bit of time on that this morning, which may make the report slightly longer than usual. But first, a quick look at the FTSE weekly chart, just to go through the overall pattern again. We started off with a high here at 6754, and basically had this A, B, C. At the top of the B we saw a failure of 6754 by just 3 points. That was wave A. Then we've got this B here. And now we've got the C wave coming in, which is subdividing into 5 waves very clearly at the moment. It's 3, and this is 4. Okay, so the 5th wave is due to come in down to here, and my expectation remains a move down to around 3,500, maybe below that. I mean, the peak was up here somewhere about 4.6 something. These moves were about 1,300 points each, so 3.5 or below is a very likely target. But currently FTSE is pausing around the 4,000 level. Now let's look at a slightly shorter term chart. Okay, this is the hourly chart of FTSE, and I'll use this to illustrate how I count waves. It's something I've done for such a long time now that it's something I do sort of fairly subconsciously, really. But what I look for is the 2 biggest corrections. Now, in this case, you've got that one, and you got this one, and those are by far the 2 biggest corrections you're seeing. I mean, there are other corrections in sight, but this one here is a smaller one. And if you look at those 2 biggest corrections, then I would label those as 2 and 4. So that would be the 2 and that would be the 4. That gives you the overall form of the 5 waves. We then look at the impulsive action to see whether it is in fact impulsive. Well, that's clearly impulsive. I've shown you the 5 wave counts of that wave in the newsletter and in previous reports. Here too, this is clearly impulsive. Counts well as a 5 wave move. And this one is not so clear. The 5th wave does tend to get a bit confused sometimes. This is what we're seeing at the moment. We're seeing a fairly confused 5 waves. Let me just quickly, just for the sake of it being clear here, we'll look at the 5th wave in a minute, but let's just subdivide waves 1 and 3. So wave 1 was a count, I think that was 1. Sorry, a small computer glitch. I'll just subdivide the 3rd wave. In fact, it's the easiest one really. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And again, I think you can see that what I've used here are the 2 biggest corrections to isolate the 5 wave pattern. I mean, that's not always the case. There are more complicated situations, but hopefully what I've said has been useful, and you can see how there are a clear 5 waves down, at least until we get to the 5th wave. So now we're going to have a look at this 5th wave. In fact, this 5th wave is fairly important. We have a fairly confused pattern here. Initially I thought that we had these 5 waves, we have clear 5 waves down there. I thought, well, that's wave 5. I thought this was an A, then we had an irregular B, and then a C. Now that count is in fact possible, and would mean this was the end of 1 here. Okay, and then we have the A, B, C to 2 here. Oops. And then we'd have a new impulsive action coming in here, but that would be 1, and this would be 2. That is possible, but we're seeing the Dow bounce on 8,000, FTSE's holding 4,000. There's also a lot of fear in the system. I mean, there seems to be what's happening here is the news is not as bad as it was when we saw waves 1 and 3 come in, but we're seeing a lot more fear, and I really feel we may be very close to a low here, more than I had thought we were. I mean, we're still officially short. There's no reason not to be short at the moment. I don't think we're going to just shoot up from here, and I still think there's a good case going down to 3.5. So it may be we've got some sort of some sort of irregular fifth wave here. I mean, it's not really a falling wedge, but a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's hardly a very nice count. It's not a traditional fifth wave. It's a kind of fifth wave in fact, it's a kind of count I tend to avoid, because I think it rather destroys the predictability of Elliott, which is what I use it for. We had a very clear first wave down, a very clear third wave down. The corrections were very clear. Now we've got this rather confused pattern developing here. But I'm just wondering whether we are seeing a more important low below 4,000. Possibly that the low we saw yesterday, just above 3,950, is in fact the end of the first leg down, and that now the correction is starting. It's a combination of factors really, but and it's not it's not a certainty. As I said, there is a case that what we're seeing here is in fact the start of the new leg down. So in this case, to be the first leg of the new leg down. And then we've got this rally here, so it could be that come next week we're going to be hurtling down. But there is some stability there. There seems to be, a lot of bad news around markets not being driven lower at the moment. I still think we're going to go low. I still think the fifth wave will complete. It's just a shorter term move whether we're going to see a bit more upside. But as I say, we're staying officially short through this for the time being, and that may change if things develop more strongly. But we're well up at the moment, a few hundred points in profit, so we can't complain. Now let's have a look at the Dow, see what's happening there. Okay, on the Dow we have a similar sort of count. Not such an obvious fifth wave here. If we look at the two biggest corrections, there seems to be one here and one obviously here. That's a very fairly clear one. So the way I'd count that is to have wave 1 here, wave 2 in this correction here, and wave 3 down to there, then wave 4, and then wave 5. Now again, you'll see we've got this new low here, below 8,000 in this case, and then 4,000, 8,000, 4,000 on FTSE, 8,000 on the Dow at very, very key levels. And it's not so clear what's happening here. We have no clear form at this point in time. I mean, if that was the peak of wave 2 here, then this looks like an ABC. So maybe we're seeing an irregular correction with a C wave to come. I just feel some sort of rally to clear the air may be necessary at this point before we can go much lower. I just think the buying power the selling power may be exhausted at this point. That rally is needed to clear the air. And certainly, having seen these 5 waves down on the Dow, we expect a somewhat stronger rally than we've seen so far. It's all rather depressed. So some kind of rally to clear the air I think is very much on the cards. As usual, we'll use our trading discipline to decide our positions. I'll probably lower the stop. I haven't lowered the stop on our short positions at this point. And we want to try and ride out the rally, if there is a rally. And as ever, stops are a compromise, because they're either too close, they get stopped out, or they're too far away, they get they're either too close and you get stopped out of a good position, or they're too far away and you end up losing more than you should have done in the first place. If we do start to see more upside next week instead of more downside, then I think it would be time to think about bailing out, because I think we might end up with a bear squeeze, which we don't want to hold short through. It'll be larger than only that. It's not larger than this. But there's certainly a case now that the bonds will start to fall away sharply. Again, if equities start to rally, I mean, often the two do the reverse of each other. Maybe we'll see bonds fall away. Anyway, we're now over 10 minutes, so I think I'll leave it there. I hope you found that enjoyable. Please do feel free to make any comments. And thanks for listening.